Welcome back to another episode from the Sturry Link Road Project. This week marks another significant step forward as work continues to gather pace across the site. From the southern end of the scheme to the north of the railway, multiple teams have been working simultaneously, with every area pushing the project closer to its next major phase. Throughout the week, construction activity remained relentless. Earthworks continued to reshape the landscape. Drainage crews expanded the network beneath the future road, and new access routes began to appear where there was little more than open ground just days before. Across the site, heavy plant, delivery lorries and specialist equipment kept moving from first light until the end of the working day, highlighting the scale of coordination needed to keep a project of this size progressing. One of the busiest locations this week was Platform D, where an extraordinary amount of material continued to arrive. Day after day, hundreds of tons of aggregate were delivered, spread, compacted and prepared, while bulldozers, rollers and excavators worked almost continuously to build the next stage of the project. Elsewhere, activity also intensified on Platform C as deliveries increased towards the end of the week, adding to the huge logistical operation taking place across the site. Beyond the main earthworks, progress could be seen in almost every direction. New drainage infrastructure continued to extend across the southern section of the scheme. Excavation began for filtered drains along the site boundary, and preparations got underway for temporary pedestrian crossings that will improve access for construction teams as work advances. North of the railway, the landscape changed dramatically over just a few days. A brand new haul road began to take shape, connecting the northern roundabout towards the future viaduct works, while utility investigations continued in preparation for future works in the area. Every task, no matter how small it may appear, plays an important role in preparing the ground for the construction still to come. With another week of hot, dry weather, dust suppression remained a constant operation, helping keep conditions safe for both the workforce and the surrounding community as construction continued at full pace. But while progress has been visible across the entire scheme, this week also delivered a milestone that many of us have been waiting to see. After months of preparation, specialist equipment, and countless hours of groundwork, construction reached a point where the project quite literally began building from the ground up. We'll take a closer look at that, along with everything else that happened across the site in this week's episode. Hold on, before we get started, you may have noticed something a little different. Yes, those are England antlers. After England's dramatic 3-2 win over Mexico in the early hours, I thought I'd do my bit for the team and show a little support on site. Whether they brought any extra luck or not is up for debate, but they definitely weren't part of the standard PPE issue. Right, enough football. We've got a huge week of construction to get through, so let's get started. These excavation pads will eventually support temporary pedestrian footbridges, allowing the workforce to move safely between different areas of the site as construction progresses. This week, stone was placed into the bottom of the excavations, ready for the next stage of construction. You may notice an excavator already working within one of these areas. Before entering another team's work zone, operators will first check in and get permission to cross into that section of the site. It's a simple but important part of day-to-day site coordination, helping different teams work alongside each other safely and efficiently. Platform D was once again one of the busiest areas on the entire project. Throughout the week, there was an almost constant flow of tipper lorries arriving with fresh deliveries of stone, keeping the Earthworks team supplied from morning through to the end of the day. As each load was tipped, it was immediately spread, levelled and compacted in carefully controlled layers. Geogrid reinforcement is incorporated as the platform is built up, creating a strong, stable foundation capable of supporting the enormous loads that will eventually be working from this area. By the time it's complete, the platform will be around 1 to 1.2 meters thick. Quite a few of you have also been asking why Platform D is so much larger than some of the others on site. We'll come back to that a little later in the episode and explain exactly why it needs such a large footprint. Attention turns to the new haul road leading down towards the future North Abutment. With the ground falling away quite steeply here, it isn't simply a case of excavating a road straight down the slope. Instead, the route is formed in a series of stepped levels. This creates a safer and more stable gradient for the heavy construction plant that will eventually be using it, including some of the largest machinery on the project. Purpose-built access ramps and working platforms are designed with carefully controlled gradients, so heavy tracked plant, such as piling rigs, can travel safely and remain stable. As the episode goes on, we'll come back to this area as the next layers, including the terram geotextile and stone, begin transforming the excavation into a fully formed haul road. With the formation now complete, the next stage could begin. Rolls of terram geotextile were carefully laid over the prepared ground before the first layers of stone were placed on top. The terram acts as a separation layer between the underlying ground and the imported aggregate, helping to improve the long-term stability and performance of the haul road while preventing the materials from mixing over time. From there, the stone could be pushed steadily down the newly formed route. By this stage, excavators were already working close to the future North Abutment, with the haul road rapidly extending towards its destination. In just a matter of days, this section had gone from a stepped excavation to a usable construction route, ready to support the next phase of works. At the southern end of the scheme, drainage works continued to edge closer towards the future South Abutment, with further deliveries of drainage components arriving throughout the week. Along the left-hand side of the future carriageway, crews continued installing the surface water drainage network. Once the road is complete, gullies positioned along the carriageway will collect surface water and direct it into these pipes, safely carrying it away from the highway. Around the attenuation pond area, further progress could also be seen, with the tops of drainage chambers being installed. These chambers form an important part of the drainage system, controlling the movement of water through the network before it continues towards the outfall. At the end of the attenuation pond, a chamber is being constructed which connects into the filter drain system running alongside the boundary. This will allow water collected from the surrounding ground and embankment to be managed as part of the wider drainage design before eventually discharging near the South Abutment through an outfall fitted with a non-return valve. As with many parts of this project, these works may not be as visible as the large earthworks and structures taking shape above ground, but they are a crucial part of making sure the completed road can safely manage surface water for years to come. While attention was focused on the drainage works at the southern end of the scheme, activity was also taking place north of the railway. Along the edge of the site, where 2 stages of ecological cutting had recently been completed, trial holes were being excavated to investigate the existing underground services. These investigations are being carried out to locate the position of the current cables before the next stage of works can begin. The information gathered here will help UK Power Networks with the future diversion of the overhead cables, which need to be moved underground through a new duct system before construction can progress around the North Abutment area. The project team has permission in place from July 13th, 2026 to divert the public right-of-way through this section, although the diversion will only be implemented when it becomes necessary to allow the works to safely progress. As these investigations continued, the project team were also meeting with UK Power Networks on site to discuss the upcoming works and the requirements for the cable diversion. As you can see, while the meeting was taking place, trial holes were continuing along the route. These were being excavated at regular intervals, approximately every 10 metres, to build up a clear picture of where the existing services are located below ground. This information will be crucial in planning the new duct route and ensuring the cable diversion can be carried out safely before construction progresses further in this area. After months of preparation, thousands of tons of material moved, and weeks spent building the platforms needed to support the next phase of construction, the moment everyone has been waiting for has finally arrived. Piling has begun. Before the first pile could be installed, the team carried out a number of checks and preparation works, including a test lift of the reinforcement cage. At over 20 meters long, these cages are not something that can simply be lifted into position by one piece of equipment. The crane and excavator work together in a carefully coordinated tandem lift, keeping the cage controlled and preventing it from dragging across the working platform. Then the moment we've been building towards. The CFA piling rig moves into position, and the auger begins its journey into the ground. This is the start of the first permanent foundations for the new bridge structure. The auger slowly drills down through the ground to the required depth, with the concrete being pumped continuously through the center of the hollow stem as it is withdrawn. The process has to be carefully controlled. As the auger rises back through the ground, the void left behind is immediately filled with concrete, creating the pile from the bottom upwards. As the footage shows, this isn't a clean or quiet operation. Water and material displaced during the drilling process make their way back up onto the platform, creating a reminder of just how much is happening beneath the surface. At the southern abutment, these piles will form the foundation of the future bridge structure. There will be 16 piles in total here, 14 main piles drilled to 25 meters deep, with 2 additional wing wall piles reaching 16 meters. Because the working platform sits higher than the final ground level, the actual drilling depths extend further, reaching around 28 meters for the main piles and 19 meters for the wing walls. Once the concrete reaches the required level, the reinforcement cage is carefully lowered into the freshly poured pile. This is another precise operation, with the cage guided down into position before a large vibrating attachment is used to help seat it fully into the concrete. And just like that, the foundations for the new bridge have officially begun. A milestone that has been months in the making, and a moment that marks the transition from preparing the ground to actually building the structure that will stand here for generations. Wow, what a sequence of events that piling was. Seeing that operation come together really shows the level of planning, precision and engineering that goes into creating the foundations for a structure like this. From positioning the rig, drilling to the required depth, continuously pumping concrete and then installing the reinforcement cage into a freshly formed pile, every stage has to work together perfectly. While all of that was happening, there was still plenty going on around the rest of the site. The drainage works we're looking at here were progressing at the same time, although capturing the piling operation took priority while that major milestone was taking place. Alongside the drainage and piling, the foundations for the temporary pedestrian footbridges were also moving forward. All 4 pads were now taking shape, with reinforcement mesh installed in the base and shuttering being fitted around the edges, creating the form for the concrete pour. These pads are now ready for the next stage, with concrete pours expected from Monday. Once poured, the concrete will then require a curing period of around 7 days before the next phase of work can continue. It's a great example of how much coordination goes into a project of this size. While one team is carrying out a major milestone operation, multiple other teams are continuing their own works around them, all moving the project forward at the same time. As another week on the Sturry Link Road Project comes to a close, this final look around the site really shows the scale of what has been achieved. From above, Platform D continues to dominate the landscape. What was once open ground is now becoming one of the key working areas for the future bridge construction. With between 1,500 and 2,000 tons of stone arriving here every single day this week, the constant movement of tipper lorries, bulldozers and rollers has transformed this area layer by layer into a platform capable of supporting some of the largest operations still to come. Moving away from Platform D and towards the southern end of the scheme, the developing carriageway begins to take shape. Beneath the future road alignment, drainage infrastructure is already being installed, with sections of pipework and associated components waiting for the next stages of construction. Although much of this work will eventually disappear beneath the finished road, these systems will play a vital role in the completed scheme. collecting and controlling surface water and ensuring the new road can continue operating safely for years to come. But the biggest moment of this week is found here at the South Abutment. After months of preparation, the first piles have now been installed. These two completed piles mark the beginning of the bridge foundations, with the next location already prepared alongside them. Looking closely, you can see the pile heads protected at the surface, with the reinforcement and concrete structure hidden below ground after the CFA piling process. Each of these piles represents a huge amount of planning and precision. The drilling rig has created foundations reaching deep into the ground, with the southern abutment consisting of 14 main piles drilled to 25 meters deep, alongside two wing wall piles reaching 16 meters. Because of the working platform level, the actual drilling depths extend further, reaching around 28 meters and 19 meters respectively. This is the point where the project starts to move from preparing the ground to creating the structure itself. Crossing over the river, more foundations are taking shape nearby. The temporary pedestrian footbridge pads are progressing, with reinforcement installed and shuttering in place, ready for concrete pours. These smaller structures may not have the same scale as the main bridge, but they are another important part of keeping a complex construction site moving safely and efficiently. Looking back across the river, Platform B continues to develop, before attention once again turns towards the enormous footprint of Platform D. This platform gives a real sense of the scale involved in delivering a project like this. Designed to support future bridge construction activities, it has required huge volumes of imported stone, careful layering, geogrid reinforcement, and continuous compaction to create a stable working area. With thousands of tons moved, the first permanent foundations now installed, and multiple areas progressing simultaneously, another major chapter of the Sturry Link Road Project comes to an end. The groundwork is changing, the foundations are beginning, and the bridge is starting to rise.